So this is a Peerless mst206, and today I'm going to show you guys how we lock it and how I plan on trying to speed it up internally so we don't got to do such a crazy pulley swap. So this transmission is very popular in the off-roading world because it's filled with oil and it's a very robust transmission. A lot of guys don't have any issues with these transmissions. They hold up very well and they're easily modifiable. So we're going to take all of our bolts out. You just take all the bolts around. And on these transmissions, they get a little tricky. And there's 2 bolts at the bottom. Do not forget those. And then you want to remove the Allen head up here because there's a spring and a little ball bearing. So you got to take those 2 out so you don't end up losing them in the transmission. So to get this transmission apart, it can be a little tricky. That's because it is silicone the whole way around because it is oil filled. So it has to be fully sealed. So this is the insides of the Peerless mst206. As you can see, it is oil filled. So one of the first things I'm going to show you guys is how people lock these axles so that way one tire ain't just spinning. A lot of guys will just set their axle in here, have everything cleaned out, and they just weld the spider gears together. That works, but they do break sometimes. Another thing that they can do is they take these axles right out and they put in one live axle and then they make a hub assembly and then they use the pins, and it's kind of easy, but you got to get a little creative with it. And then there is a couple of people that sell a piece that go in between these 2 axles and locks it together. It's called a no weld locker kit. That fits a whole bunch of transmissions. Or the last thing you could do is get yourself another set of spider gears that are, I think you need an odd number teeth or something. I forget exactly how it's done, but they take another set of spider set gears and they put it in here. Some guys also will weld it with those other gears, and that kind of makes it a little bit stronger. Now, the most important thing I'm trying to figure out how to do is how do we speed this up internally? Because right now it goes from a small gear to a big gear. I've seen some guys in the past take apart a whole bunch of transmissions and get lucky and found one spline on there, that spline size, it's a bigger spline, and then they find a gear set with a smaller spline. I'm not too sure where I could get those transmissions from. I don't remember what kind he even got them from. So I started taking apart a Spicer. This is usually found in a John Deere. A lot of guys like this because the axles are longer, so they could put the axles out here. They're about 3 inches longer. Then guys will add some bearings to the ends to keep the axle from twisting and breaking the case in half, and it gives them a wider stance. So I had a little bit of a big brain moment, and I went over my favorite place, Tractor Supply. Why? Because we're gonna run a chain inside. Giggity. So I remember watching a video about this done to a MTD style transmission, which is just forward, neutral, and reverse. This guy was converting it for a racing mower. And how he internally sped it up was he found 2 gears that fit on the shafts and he welded them on and ran a chain. And it would incredibly speed up his tractors without stressing the input shaft. Because when you do these big pulley swaps, what happens is you're really overspinning the intake bearing, and that very well hurts it and makes it prematurely wear in time, and it's just not good for it. And it also helps keep the speed of the transmission internals down to a little slower speed, because when you're really overspinning the drive pulley on the transaxle end, you're also really overspinning the internals by a lot, and that causes a lot of heat and, again, premature wear. My genius is impeccable. This has turned out way better than I'd ever hoped it did. These are like perfect fit on there. I mean, they got a little bit of play, but you'll never feel that. Same with this. This one's even tighter, so I'm not worried about that one. I'm going to trim it up so I got some more room here from the case. I might turn this around and have the gear closer to this shaft. I'm not too sure yet. I got to look at the chain and see how it fits. Upon further estimation, I have found that if I spun my hub assembly here around, this gear actually fits perfectly on this whole shaft. So I could put this wherever I want, but it works great because I could put it right in between the two. So I'm gonna get my buddy to TIG weld that right around that whole shaft. That should be more than plenty enough strong. And I'm gonna probably take this hub back off. I'm gonna pack it full of putty or hardener stuff to help hold it, kinda, maybe. I don't know. This one I'm going to cut and shorten this shaft as well, because I do got a spacer that fits in between here that fits better. And then I could weld this gear also solid to this shaft. It'll be permanent, hopefully. I went ahead and did all the math. So with this new setup running the 1-to-1 gear ratio there, it now turns it to a 4-to-1 ratio transmission exactly. So what that means is every 4 revolutions of that pulley turns this bull gear 1 time. So that's a great start to the speed up kit. Now, I could probably go a slightly bigger gear here, and if I could find one, a smaller gear there, but I highly doubt they're going to be any smaller on this size. So you want to know how much faster this is now? The original gear ratio in 6th gear was 13.7 to 1. So that means you would need 13.7 turns of that pulley to go 1 time. Now this is a 4-to-1. This is going to be fast. I got way too small of a pulley on there. So next time I will show you guys how we're going to build the whole live axle setup. That's relatively simple. And the best part about these transmissions is you can get a sealed bearing to put in here. They already have the grooves, and that helps with the weight distribution. And so that way you're also not relying on the case itself as a bearing. You would use the actual bearing. But not only we're going to use the bearings, the number will be up here somewhere. I'm going to also put a pillow block bearing on the end as well, and that just helps keep the case from taking a brunt of the abuse. Now, if you made it this far in the video, you might be thinking that I made a mistake, but I know what you're thinking. I did not. So what happens is when you take 2 gears away from each other, because they're touching, they would spin this shaft the opposite direction. Since we're using a chain, it's now spinning it the same direction. So now we have to change the direction of the input shaft, which is very easy on the mst206. So on some mst206s, they actually would come in probably a rear engine riding mower, and it would be flipped backwards. So they would end up using a different gear set. So this is the gear set off of backwards facing mst206. As you can see, these shafts are built differently. The backwards facing mst206 changes around the position of the reverse gear and the forward gear. So it puts the forward gear on the outside and the reverse gear on the inside. So you have to get both the shaft and the spur gear, or the bevel gear, or whatever gear this is. There's the part number for that one. I don't remember what the part number for that is, but I'll post that right up here. You can get these also from Romsey Works. Same guy that made the speed up kit for the Peerless 820. So I went ahead and got everything set up. I got a chain made for it, but unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to use a 50 chain like I wanted to. So I'm going to go down to a 40 chain because I just don't have enough room for it. It ends up hitting the side of the case with the master link. And it's all really close, so over time, this is going to probably move back and forth and wear a hole in the case. So I'm going to go get a 40 chain and new sprockets and try to re-engineer everything. But that's it for today. More on next time.